Alex Lehman, thank you so much for joining us here on the Front Row Network on NPR Illinois to talk about MUCU. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here.
This is going to be a really, really fun discussion because I love this movie so much. There is so much to love about this movie. I want to get into it, but before we do, I always want to ask new people on the show just the superhero origin story of them in a way. So, like, Alex, how do you go from, as I always like to put it, born human being to director of TV and film?
Well, I guess the really long story. This is a 3-hour episode, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I was born. No, I didn't get into filmmaking until I was born in France, and then I moved to the U.S. and I was definitely the weird French kid. I didn't have any friends. It was like summer right before third grade, and my next door neighbor, this kid that I really wanted to be friends with, he loved watching movies, and he made movies with his mom's camcorder. So I was like, I'm gonna do that too. His favorite movie was Jaws, so I was like, that's my favorite movie now, because I needed to not be lonely, I guess, if I'm
Yeah.
being honest. And so that's what got me in, and then all of a sudden I couldn't stop. I never stopped. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're just going to transition that straight to this new film, Meet Cute. I got to say, just like the movie opens up and it feels very much like those old fashioned romantic comedies with all of that kind of stuff, like, oh, ordering the same drink and stuff like that. And man, you turn that on its head pretty quickly. Well, actually, not quickly. You really like kind of slow walk us to that plot, to the premise of, and we're just as doubtful as Gary in that moment. The audience is there too, but time travel and all that kind of stuff, time loops, it's been very in vogue, in the last couple of years, but this really does feel different. So what was it specifically about this project, this script, and how it dealt with the time travel narratives and stuff that drew you personally to it?
Well, the truth is, when I was handed this script, it was my last movie. I just played at Sundance, and so I was getting all these scripts, and I was I was being too quick to pass on things. I passed on this because I read the first 20 pages, and I was like, "What? This is just like a rom-com." I'm like, "I don't do rom-coms. Like, this is weird." And then somebody told me, like, "You, dude, you got to keep reading." And I kept reading, and it obviously it hooked me. And I think what was great about it is that it works as a rom-com. It really honors the genre in a lot of ways, and it also challenges it. I wouldn't say maybe it's a full subversion, but it was like a deconstruction of what relationships are, and it asked the questions that cynical people like myself ask at the end of a rom-com, which is like the credits come. The funny thing is, like, you go see a movie, with back in the day, Cameron Diaz or whoever fallen in love, and the credits come up, and you're like, ah, I'm so glad they're together. And then the next summer, you go to see a movie, and Cameron's fallen in love with another guy, and like I always felt weird about. I was like, but what happened to the other guy? Like, we were so committed to that relationship, and we're all acting like she's showing up with a new boyfriend at Thanksgiving, and it's totally cool. Like, I was always bothered by that. Too emotionally invested. So this script, I think, asks some really smart questions, and it's like the most honest, maybe time travel, tanning bed time travel, movie there is when it comes to romance.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. Like there is definitely an honoring of that whole trope of like you said, like seeing a person across the bar and oh, we'll have an old fashioned said at the same time. Now, of course, we know later that there's a reason why, she's able to say these things, but like I just love the chemistry that you were able to foster though between Kaylee and Pete in this film. The two of them are, I would say, what, like 90% of this movie, 95% of this movie. Um, yeah, and it's just like you're working here with two established stars with some pretty big bodies of work and some very known bodies of work, but you really do kind of get very new looks to these actors with this material. So I just wanted to kind of ask you about the process of working with them. Like you get a lot of sorrow and a lot of regret and pain out of Kaylee's character, and you get a lot of like melancholy and anxiousness out of Pete's character, I think, in this film. So what was the process of getting those two to kind of like really dive into those characters?
Well, anybody that hangs out with me long enough, they're going to be sorrowful or full of melancholy. That's that's just you just described all my friends. They started as
Oh,
happy people, and then they met me. No, there's just I think that the story leaves room for honest comedy, and honest comedy comes out of truth
mm,
and pain and actual situations, not like set gags. And so Kaylee and I and Pete and I, we all had really honest conversations about every film I've done. I call it the Breakfast Club conversation, where I get together with the actors and I share a little bit about my life, and they share a little bit, and all of a sudden we're all, crying and laughing and loving each other and threatening, like if you tell anybody what I just told you, I'll fucking kill you. Sorry, can't curse, probably. But yeah, we definitely share a lot about where we are in our lives, and then I kind of adjust the material a little bit to meet the actors there a little bit more. We also do a lot of improv on my films, not
Mm.
just comedic improv. But I think it's really interesting to find where the material meets our lives, where it intersects our lives, and it doesn't matter if it's a movie about a tanning bed time machine. Like there's still something very human that I can relate to, and that Kaylee can relate to, and that Pete can relate to, and so where we go with the film, it's because of those conversations we had early on, and obviously because they're vulnerable and generous enough to bring that side of themselves to the material. Um, that's
Yeah,
where, yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it is one of those things, like I kept getting drawn into the script because it's a lot like how I talk with my friends, like there's like this I don't know what you would call it, like a loving sarcasm that you like often talk with. Like I do that to my friends all the time. It's just like, oh yeah, that's really true, like, but I'm not trying to like degrade them. I'm just trying to be like, joking around and stuff. And that is kind of the way that they deal with each other. But I love so much of the narrative of this film is that you do hit like the typical relationship markers of these kinds of films, like getting sick of each other and conflict coming from like annoying ticks and everything. But it is all through the lens of someone who is keeping one person in a certain kind of environment. And so I just thought that was a very, very interesting way to do that. Was that something that you really honed in on with the script as well? Like you really wanted to make that raw and real?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a valid question. This movie has to work both if there's a time machine and if there was no time machine, what's the emotional version of that? And so when you say I really loved someone, and then the things I loved about them started to be the things that drove me crazy,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden I wanted to change those things about that person. I just described every relationship that's gone longer than 18 months. Um, but if you're trying to change those things about that person in a really controlling way, and you maybe not in the most honest or forthcoming way, that's pretty messed up and dark. And I've seen a lot of comedies like time travel comedies or Groundhog Day comedies that don't really ask the question like, is this is this okay? Like just because
Yeah.
it's funny, like and we go there, we go, okay, A, it's funny, but then we go, but really though, like that's kind of indecent what this person was doing, this other person. And so we asked those questions. And then I think the other question that we really asked is somebody's pain that you're trying to take away, is that not a part of who they are as well? And to try to separate those two as separate entities is, it's kind of nuts. Like we are our whole selves, and the pain and the trauma and everything that we've experienced, not to not to downplay, what it is. I'm sure that like a lot of people wish that they didn't experience certain traumas, but it is a part of who they are now, and to take that away would change someone beyond recognition. And so we try to walk the line. I'm getting too serious. See, this is
No.
where the melancholy comes out because quick, make a joke, make a joke.
No, 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 not at all. And I love though that you're talking about that, because that part of the film is really fun, and I love that, like, when I was watching it, I write notes when I'm watching films and reviewing them and stuff. And like when he walked into the bar the second time as like just kind of like this like souped up bro version of himself or something like that. The literal first day I was like, well, wait, how is this happening? And what I love about this film is like you don't like then like immediately take us to exposition. You like really give us like a slow walk toward what she did and how she did it. And I think that that is like so like just ingenious in the way that like the typical thing there to be would be like, oh, let's make sure the audience is right here with us and stuff. But you kind of, I feel like you trusted us to just like kind of go with it, right?
Absolutely. That was a goal, is we all agreed, like, let's respect the audience. Let's assume that we have a really intelligent and engaged audience. And I think we set up early enough, we give them the payoffs so that when we get to some weirder stuff down the line, the audience knows like, okay, I don't know exactly where I am, but I trust that we're all gonna meet up again. And yeah, I think making you have to respect your audience.
Mm.
Like they're smart.
Yeah, yeah, just let us come with you and stuff, and that, yeah, like I was looking at my notes again, and I literally just wrote like, ah, that's how, and everything. So I was just like, there's a little running commentary of the movie there. But I also loved how you kind of used a mixture of camera filming styles in this. You have both like a handheld, it's not shaky cam, but it's just very like right there and moving. But you also do some still stuff as well. And I'm just curious, like, do you find that like when you use the handheld camera stuff, it creates like a more realness in the scenes? And it was that a deliberate choice?
It's an intimacy. Yeah, I think we wanted to start a little bit farther away and feel like a really old school rom-com where we were observing and it felt like everything was being, put on a more objective platter and then as the audience gets to lean in and really connect with the characters in a way that there's more dimensionality than there typically is in a rom-com. I thought it was really important for the cam you bring the camera in as a handheld piece really close to the character and you can't help but relate to them. It's like staring someone in the face like 3 feet away from you. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what their beliefs are, and how different they are from you. Like at some point you just log in with those eyes, baby, and you're feeling with them.
Yeah, and I also feel like it was what I love that you give us like the good date up at the start and everything, because immediately drawn in at the start of this film, we root for them immediately, and we only get like what it's only like 10 minutes or so of like this date and everything, and it's kind of like, oh man, these guys are great. Like I'm rooting for them already, and then the shenanigans kind of start. And I just really appreciate that with you with giving us that, because like it really does build the foundation of the question you were asking. Is this okay? Is this something that should be happening? And that really does kind of manifest in the character of June, who of course has this tanning bedtime machine. And the actress there, I got to give her full props here, and I want to make sure I get her name right. Deborah S. Craig. She is so fantastic in this film, because that dry, like acerbic wit of hers, like I absolutely love the where we see Kaylee's or Sheila's real reasoning for going into the nail salon. And she's literally just like, why don't you just try it out? You can always kill yourself later and stuff like that. Like, was that something that kind of like both of you came up with, like that really dry delivery of kind of like these really serious lines?
Well, it started on the page. Noga Newley, our writer, what she did with that character of June was fantastic. And then Deborah found her own connection to it. But it's a trope. Like usually that character is a trope, and it usually is an Asian woman, and she's like the genie in a bottle that makes it all work for the two characters trying to fall in love, and she like plays it with this resentment in
Yeah.
this the Kaylee character. There's this entitlement of these people coming in to get their nails done, but also please like fix my life, while you run this little nail shop, you barely barely covering it, and plays it she plays it in a really beautiful way because we get to reveal the depth in that character as well, and her own pain and her own perspective. But the way she holds back and the way it's revealed so late, I don't know, it's kind of the way I think most people are generous in life, where they don't we don't bring everything. We try to serve each other. We try to like show kindness to each other before finally saying like, hey, you know what? I've actually been having the worst day or like the worst year. And so like, could you please stop being selfish for a second? And everything I just said was really boring, and everything that Deborah does is like the funny, interesting version of that. And
Yeah.
that's why Deborah's on screen doing it. Brilliant. Like I hope she does everything. Like she was a discovery. She was fantastic.
Yeah, I think she's going to get a lot of work from this film. Here's hoping, because you're right. She's just a revelation in this. Practically speaking, with time travel movies, I'm always fascinated with directors of like, how do you keep track of what you're shooting? Because especially with something like this, you're so focused in on like very few people, very few settings, that we get to visit in this film. And so like, I'm assuming, while you're on a certain location, you're trying to film as much as you can. Like, what is the process like for you as a director? And maybe even you can speak speak to what, Kaylee and Pete were doing, like to try to get into the mindset of where you are in the film at that point in time.
Yeah, emotional continuity was really important, and everything else just didn't feel as important. I mean, there were two options with the film. Either we get like a room with like a bunch of red yarn, and we, try to like map all the timelines and do all the things to make every single time travel expert on the internet happy, or we make like two jokes that say like screw time travel, like this
Yeah.
is bigger than time travel, and I think we earn it with the audiences, and then we get to just track the emotional element of it, which is basically, even though it's the repeating day element, it's also just it feels like a 2 or 3 or 4 year relationship, and these hurt people going through everything within that time. It just happens to be on the same date over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the joke I think you're talking about is Pete's at the very end of the film, which I laughed very much out loud just as he's running out of the shop there. I won't ruin it for anybody listening, but the way the delivery is just pitch perfect because it's just kind of like, all right, well, let's go. But
Yeah, we improvised that one, and that yeah, it was like because the movie, as you know, takes a kind of more emotional turn, and I feel like you at that point the because we can't talk about it too much because people haven't seen it, but I'll just say there's a point where the time travel aficionados could say, "But couldn't you?" And that's where we had to just like ask the audience, like, just come with us on this ride. Like the
yeah,
emotions, all that matters. Like we're not gonna have Doctor Strange or somebody come through some like portal. Like forget it. Like this is not that movie. And
yeah.
yeah,
No, I totally agree with you there because yeah, it's just like at that point in the movie, I'm so invested in the people. Like I don't care about the logic anymore or anything like that. Like, like it makes sense for what we're telling, which is this story between these people. And in that vein, you mentioned earlier that trauma it really is a big part of this film. Like it's kind of the main through line is that, how trauma affects our lives.
yeah,
And in many ways, it's unavoidable. But as June tells us, erasing that trauma also erases the person in a way. So the point kind of is how you deal with it, right? Like some people have help, some people don't need it, some have the strength to do it on their own. Kaylee, her character Sheila, is just so much trauma through her childhood that really kind of develops the way she sees the world. And Gary tells us as well, like he was always kind of by himself. They both didn't have their fathers around, and that kind of really spoke to me. I got two little kids of my own, and I shudder to think of what could happen. I told somebody beforehand that scene with little Sheila gutted me, and I don't want to give away anything about it, but like seeing how that trauma starts at such a young age and can fester into these things. What was that doing to you when you were reading the script, when you were filming that, like dealing with the idea of trauma in this way?
well, there's I think there's a trope that you find the right person and they can help fix your traumas. Like forget even like going back in time and avoiding them ever happening. But like I don't think we can heal each other. We can't fix each other. That's not that's not realistic to me. And the idea of romance, because I think this is a truly romantic film, just an honest one. I think the most romantic thing is to stand by someone who is experiencing trauma and to have the patience and to the unwavering support as they face it themselves. And to hold somebody's hand instead of saying like, let me fix this for you, instead to just hold their hand and say, I'm here for you and I see you, and as long as it takes and as hard as this is, I will stand by you as you address this. I think that's love. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually very early in the film. Like, Sheila, she starts revealing a lot to Gary early in the film, as far as our perspective. I mean, who knows how long she's been, doing this with him. But like I remember thinking to myself there, I was like, man, like his reaction to that is what I hope everybody's reaction would be, which is just that kind of ungod or like unhumanly understanding. Just like, if somebody you just met was saying these kinds of things to you, I hope we would all just have the empathy to say, okay, well, I'm glad you're better now, or I'm glad that you're still here and stuff like that. And I think that was a really fun choice, or not fun choice. I think that was a really good choice of showing again kind of like an aspirational way to be with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think Every film I've made so far in my career has not had, as a director, has not had an actual villain. And so I think like maybe ignorance or judgment, this sounds so, hippy dippy, but like ignorance and judgment ends up being um, the villain, and empathy ends up being the hero. We try to do it in funny and interesting ways, but and I think it's beautiful when we can reach down inside ourselves and be empathetic, especially to the person who's like unintentionally hurting us. That's where the conflict is when you want to support someone who is trying not to hurt you but can't help but hurt you in trying to fix themselves. And like a 3-year-old kid's going to say, "Ouch, why'd you do that?" And the rest of our lives, I think we try to figure out how to say, "I understand you didn't mean to do that, and even though I've got to protect myself, I also want to, be patient and support you." So,
Yeah. Yeah,
but hey, it's a
absolutely.
comedy.
It really is. It really is funny. Like, and I that's why somebody when I was describing it, I was like, it's very much a rom com, but it doesn't dive away from the serious stuff, Like, and I kind of think that's what the best films, the best like comedies, dramas, anything are the ones who have that blend. Like those are the ones that make the biggest impact on me personally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like being movies that challenge me to be a better person and that don't like serve up an answer, but at least like give me a question to say like, how could I be better, or what do I think I could learn about myself or about life. Those are fun, and they can be horror movies, comedy movies, romance movies, whatever, but like they challenge you.
Yeah. And that's where it's all about. So I've got two kind of ridiculous ones to end us on here, but again, I really don't want to give away gags or anything, but are those ice cream flavors real? Like, are those from real life, or is that just kind of the ridiculous train chugging full steam?
Yeah, that's the ridiculous train. That's once again our brilliant writer Noga Newley wrote some really good ones, and then the actress that plays Chai, Hari Neff, she ended up improvising some as well. And they're all brilliant, and they're all a great send up on where we're at this point with ice cream flavors, which is
Oh
just
yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, I'll eat that stuff, like the bees from Malaysia. What I like they're whatever weird flavors there are, like they're all delicious, but I'm still down for chocolate too.
Yeah, but also don't forget vanilla. Every
Don't
once
forget
in a
vanilla. Yeah, yeah. By the way, that role, because we were kind of on a time and budget crunch, we were gonna cut that role, and then when Hari Neff auditioned, it was like, oh, we can't cut, or we can't cut that scene anymore because she's brilliant as Chai. So just a little
yeah.
shout out to her because she caught us off guard.
Yeah, that was really fantastic. And the last question I have is, yeah, you kind of subvert also the end credits of a typical rom com with like a what you would typically see as like a blooper reel there. And what you have in this sense is the stuff we didn't get to see throughout the movie. So I guess my question is a practical one. Was that stuff that you shot that maybe was going to be in the movie that you then kind of just said like, oh, well, we can do this now? Or was it always kind of like this end thing like that you wanted to show at the end?
Yeah, that's the beauty and the pain of doing improv on set, especially with people as brilliant and funny as Pete and Kaylee. Like you're just gonna leave stuff on the cutting room floor that you don't want to leave, and so we felt like we could put it at the end without dishonoring the film. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I just want more Gary and Sheila. Like
I
it's
know. Yeah,
like
I was like, I always watch through to the credits because I'm like a musical score feed and stuff like that. But yeah, when that came up, I was just like, yes, I get more. It's not like a blooper reel. It's just like more of what I just got done watching. I loved it.
we're not
So
breaking the wall. We're just showing all those misstates. I mean, they've only been doing it for 30 years.
right. So, well, Alex, the film Meet Cute, it's out on Peacock September 21st. Today, most likely for everybody listening. And it is truly fun. It is truly fantastic. It's moving, and I think it really does cut its own path in a genre that it's hard to cut a path in. So, thank you very much for the art that you've made, and everyone go see it.
Thank you. I hope everybody has a wonderful date night. Thank you for the really thoughtful interview.